welcome everyone. I'm Kathy Bisbee, Executive Director of Brookline Interactive Group. Thank you so much for coming today. We're really pleased that you're here to spend your Saturday with us, and we hope it's going to be very beneficial for you and that we'll be able to do some collaborative thinking together. And I'm going to read my notes because we are on camera. As you can see, the little red lights are blinking. And part of that is because everything we do here that's educational, we like to put it on television. We still are on cable channels, on RCN and Comcast. And we also, of course, put it on YouTube and on our website. So all of the content from today's Innovation Summit will be online and accessible to all of you after the event. And also you can share it with friends and colleagues and family members. You may even be in some of the shots yourself. Of course, we always say if you'd prefer not to be on camera at all, just let us know, but it is a public space, so we may get the back of your head at some point. So I want to welcome you to our Community Media Center, and also on behalf of our collaborative partners for this event, the Brookline Public Schools. Could Brookline Public School folks that have been on the committee raise their hands, please? Just want to thank them for their involvement. Amy and Scott and Jennifer and Gabe, thank you so much. And we'll do a round of that at the end as well. And also Brookline Education Foundation. Is there anyone here from BEF already? Thank you so much, Kathleen, for being here. And we're very excited to collaborate with these three partners to put on our first ever Innovation in Education Summit. So I'm very excited about what we have planned for you today. I'll be up later to talk a little bit more about BIG and what we do and how you can use some of the resources here. But I wanted to read two quotes that might set the stage a little bit for us today. The reason that we organize this event is that one of our deepest desires and I think goals and missions is to facilitate community dialogue. And because we know that this community of Brookline cares deeply about education, we really thought that this would be a good topic for us to have a public dialogue and for us to help facilitate that process. We want you as the community and us as the community to have a dialogue with itself about education. We want a community, and one of the things we do here at BIG is that we foster a community space, both physical and virtually, that cultivates creativity, collaboration, and encourages new ways of communicating and innovative ways of thinking. So two thoughts. William James, how many of you are familiar with William James? Amazing artist and activist. He said, "Genius means little more than the faculty of perceiving in an unhabitual way." I'm going to read it again. Genius means little more than the faculty of perceiving in an unhabitual way. So one of the things I hope that will color our conversation today is that we'll get out of our habits and our ways of thinking about ourselves, about the way that we educate, about the way we interact, and think about new ways to create collaborations between each other, with our colleagues, and with our community partners. And I also think that we will be tapping into that creative genius, the collective genius that's in this room. Your experience, your ideas, your instinct, and your creativity are very valuable, and we're looking forward to hearing all of those in many of the discussions today that are going to really encourage participation. So the idea here is to explore, have a conversation, to challenge our own assumptions and each other's, and to come up with ways that we might creatively solve problems together. Have a great day, and I'm going to introduce now Tessa Jolls, who's our keynote today, and give you a little bit about her background. She's going to come in. Come on in, Tessa. This is Tessa Jolls. She's come all the way from Southern California to be with us today. And for this, I have to put the glasses on. So inspiring media literacy education is Tessa Jolls' mission and passion. As president and CEO of the Center for Media Literacy and founder of the Consortium for Media Literacy in Los Angeles, Tessa is the 2015 winner of the Global Media Literacy Award given by UNESCO-initiated Global Alliance for Partnerships on Media and Information, in cooperation with the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. That's a mouthful.
It is definitely a mouthful.
She is the co-creator and publisher of the Community Media, I want to say Community Media, but Center for Media Literacy, Literacy Kit, a research-based collection of resources for media literacy education featuring the questions Q/Tips framework. She is a frequent speaker and writer on media literacy topics, and her work has been translated into many languages and is the base for major media literacy implementation programs. Thank you so much for coming on our program and on this panel and being here with us today.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, I've been meeting and talking with some of you this morning already, and I must say I am very excited about being here today, so thanks so much for the invitation. Well, Kathy mentioned that I came from California, and of course I followed in Kathy's footsteps here. But I'm here to tell you some stories. In the words of Joseph Campbell, a storyteller extraordinaire, if you're going to have a story, have a big story, or not at all. And so I'm here to tell you about BIG, Boston Interactive Group, our host today, and about how BIG contributes to the bigger picture of the Brookline community. And bigger yet, I want to help you explore your own story and how you contribute to the bigger and big picture each and every day. This summer, I interviewed Kathy for our monthly newsletter called Connections, and then I met her at a national community media conference in Pasadena. And Kathy said, our work at BIG isn't just about BIG's story. It's about our community's story. Community-based storytelling is a political act. Our role at the center is to see that all voices are represented, and in that sense, last bastion of free speech. I learned more about how BIG helps empower people in Brookline to tell their stories. And Kathy said, we want children to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and media provides a great starting place for developing these skills. We want students to understand how to be a media consumer through making media. This project-based approach is very effective, and even very young children want to explore and to understand media. I come to you today as a parent, as a teacher, and as a community activist. And I'm sure that you will agree with me when I say that what Kathy had to say is big. Her words lead us to the intersections of storytelling, community, media, education, and technology. Her words get to the heart of what we as parents and educators and activists want to inspire in our communities. We want to inspire the ability to question and to confront, especially confront what is happening in our local village, and to have the wherewithal, the tools and the resources to solve problems and increase our community's quality of life. We want education with a human face and with a meaningful purpose. Media is at the center of this quest today because we live in a virtual world, the global village, as Marshall McLuhan famously said, as well as the local village. And the bridge between these worlds is becoming shorter and shorter. We are living in the midst of a revolution of our own making. The internet has changed our lives. Today, children and all citizens need both content knowledge and information process skills. Information process skills call for knowing how to learn continuously, anywhere, anytime. People need to learn to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and participate with multimedia information so that they can make wise choices. They need to be efficient managers of information, wise consumers of media, responsible producers, and active and effective participants in today's global media culture. These information process skills represent the classic definition of media literacy. This isn't to say that content knowledge isn't important. Of course it is. But teaching process skills is essential and requires new understanding, modeling, and ongoing, high-level, determined commitment. Having media literacy, a consistent process of inquiry that each person internalizes, can also be called a heuristic or a shortcut to quickly analyzing and evaluating any information. Media literacy provides citizens with an anywhere, anytime way of learning to match the anywhere, anytime opportunities to learn. To be effective and to be capable of being replicated, measured, and scaled, media literacy education must be consistent and based on a common philosophy and framework. Media literacy has grown through the work of academics and organizations from the past 50 years, and a common base of knowledge has emerged that provides the foundation for the media literacy field. Our organization, the Center for Media Literacy, founded by Elizabeth Toman in 1989 in Los Angeles, bases much of our work on that of Len Masterman from England, from Canadians such as Barry Duncan and John Pungenti, from Henry Jenkins of the University of Southern California, and on our own research and development work. We encourage learning through the 5 core concepts of media literacy and a process of inquiry that applies to both media deconstruction and to media construction. Here's what our basic framework called Questions Tips looks like. And you've all been given a copy of this in your folders. And so I don't need to go through it in detail, I don't think. But I want you to get the general idea of why it's constructed as it is. You'll see the 5 core concepts of media literacy in the center of the chart. And these concepts really describe how media operate as a system, and as a global system, I might add. And so the 5 core concepts are that all media messages are constructed. Someone made them. Media messages are constructed using a creative language with its own rules. Different people experience the same media message differently. Media have embedded values in points of view. And most media messages are organized to gain profit and or power. And we use power in its broadest sense of influence. And so based on these concepts, we've come up with a set of key questions that relate to each concept. And by practicing applying these questions to any content, students, children, adults can get a really quick methodology then for critically analyzing and taking apart any media message anytime. And they also have tools then to critique their own media constructions based on the core concepts. And so what we're seeking here is to really get an internalized method for kids to learn to ask questions and to give them some ideas of what the best questions are to start with. Now, we've broken these key questions down for young children. And we found that very young children, even preschoolers, are perfectly capable of really understanding media through the lens of media literacy. And again, I'm happy to provide any of the key questions for you if you're interested in pursuing the key questions for young children. In today's world, we say that children need media literacy from birth because media literacy is part of everyday life. When you've seen your grandkids kiss an iPad screen during a FaceTime session like I have, you know that it's time for media literacy. It's not my purpose today to discuss this methodology in detail, but I can assure you that a media literacy approach is the embodiment of the 4 C's that the Partnership for 21st Century Skills calls for in American education: critical thinking, communication, creativity, and collaboration. In formal education settings, media literacy easily addresses the Common Core state standards. Media literacy helps students apply these skills across all disciplines and subjects at all ages and stages. Furthermore, media literacy helps expand the notion of what a text is. Decoding a text is not limited to the written word, but media literacy texts extend to the visual, the audio, and the sensory arenas as well. After all, writing isn't limited to just writing the alphabet. Writing is choreography and animation. Writing is signage and visual art. It is music and sound effects, and it is storytelling and theater. Our children need the skills to read and to write in many different platforms with many different audiences and purposes. Media literacy also enables people to be agents and actors in their own lives. So it's not only important to teach the skills of critical analysis of media, but it's also important to ask the question, so what? Another part of CML's methodology addresses this question of so what through encouraging a process of awareness, analysis, reflection, and action, which we call the empowerment spiral. This process provides a quick way to think about decision-making, about taking action or not. Our philosophy rests on the idea of empowerment through education, not on media bashing or on a focus of protecting children from media. Instead, we want children and adults to use media effectively toward their own goals and to understand the role of media in society and in a democracy. Part of children's understanding of their roles as producers and consumers of media involve issues such as the media diet, or how much and what type of media children consume and produce. Other topics addressed are internet safety, copyright usage, and we were talking about that in the hall earlier, and legal aspects of media, journalistic ethics, and project management. We are all producers now. We are all journalists. We are all actively contributing to the marketplace of ideas. With this democratization of the means of production, we now have the responsibility to acquire the know-how and the skills that go with our newfound powers. Acquiring these skills begins at an early age. Research has consistently shown that mediation, or in teacher lingo, the idea might be called scaffolding, is a key to encourage media literacy skills and agency in children. Children, like all of us, learn best through social interactions. Posing questions, expressing our values, and challenging media content are all effective ways to help children become independent thinkers and users of media. Examples abound. Some recent brain research reported on in the New York Times by Dr. Perry Klass notes that the brains of 3 to 5-year-old children light up when they're hearing stories. And the different levels of brain activation suggest that children who have more practice in developing visual images as they look at picture books and as they listen to stories may develop skills that will help them make images and stories out of words later on. Adults facilitate this process by reading and telling stories to children and helping children learn to question the stories they engage with. This summer, I conducted an interview with Dr. Dorothy Singer, the now retired senior scientist at the Department of Psychology at Yale University. Dorothy is one of the pioneers in the field of media literacy, and her words ring true for all forms of media. And I quote, "Mediation means effort on the part of the parent, but it does pay off. We found that those parents who were the good mediators, who did a lot of talking with their children, had children who were performing much better on all kinds of tests that we gave. So my advice would be talk, talk, talk with your children. Read to them at night. Read a story before they go to bed. If you do that early on, by the time your child is 10, 12, or 13, you know that you have a child who is much more discriminating than a child who never had that mediating experience." At CML, we want the practice of media literacy to be something doable and practical. We want teachers and parents to focus on only 5 key questions to begin with. These questions lead to more questions, and they can easily be connected to any topic of discussion. The 5 key questions introduce an easy way to practice media literacy each and every day. CML's longitudinal research, the largest media literacy study done to date, has shown that teaching and learning the 5 core concepts and the 5 key questions has significant outcomes. Let me get to that slide here. Here we go. First of all, compared to controls in the study, middle school students were able to learn and apply the 5 core concepts and key questions. So yes, it's a doable goal for students to learn this methodology. And second, since the focus of the study was on violence prevention, students were better able to identify violent incidents in media. We found that they were so desensitized to violence in media that they really couldn't even identify it. So we first started working with them on being able to, quote unquote, see violence and understand violence more. And so at the end of the study, they were able to identify incidents of violence, and they were more sensitized to the presence of violence. And so yes, media literacy can help students process content knowledge more effectively. And third, students acknowledge that people are able to protect themselves by watching less violent media. And so students can change their attitudes towards subjects or issues such as violence, and they can process media more consciously. And finally, regarding behaviors, students reported less pushing or shoving another student and less threatening to hit or hurt someone. And so there were actual behavioral outcomes to using media literacy as a health intervention strategy as well as for a learning strategy. And so definitely media literacy can affect children's behaviors as well. The world can be a scary place, and media reflect and sometimes promote violence, addiction, obesity, anorexia and bulimia, attention deficit disorders. I could go on and on. But the world can also be a rewarding place, and media are central to gaining employment, finding community resources, and staying in close touch with those we care about. Children must have media literacy skills and acquire them early on to have the know-how and the resilience they need to navigate safely. We prepare children for crossing streets, for driving safely, for interacting with strangers. We prepare them for travel, for work, and for networking. Shouldn't we prepare our children for life in the global media village as well? Media literacy skills are valued skills. Other countries throughout the world, Finland, who's a real education leader, Ireland, Canada, Australia, Korea, New Zealand, Great Britain, Nigeria, all are incorporating media literacy education into their agendas. I congratulate BIG on its efforts to bring more awareness of media literacy education to you here today. And in this world of instant access, we want our children to have the understanding and the skills to ask the right questions, to know how to discern fact from fiction and from opinion, and to be able to make choices and express their views according to the values that will serve them, their family, and their community. This is a tall order, and one that takes guidance and time and practice. I know all of the educators here can appreciate that. The advertising industry, big data, and social media providers all spend billions of dollars to reach us and to persuade us. Our education system needs to prioritize the type of education that helps children build the skills they need to navigate this world we live in. But I'm sure that's a message that you already know, because after all, you are here at an education summit at BIG, a place where big ideas thrive and big stories can be told. Technology is on our side, and indeed, technology is the impetus behind this new way of teaching and learning. Thanks to technology, we can easily learn on the move rather than in our seats. And that's a radically different approach from the factory model of education in closed classrooms that has long prevailed. Youth have opportunities to engage in socially supportive learning that is also personally interesting and relevant. Media literacy connects academics to civic engagement and career opportunities. This type of learning and teaching honors young people's ability to voice and express themselves and to contribute to solving problems. Citizenship starts at birth. When I looked at the program for today's summit, I was very pleased to see a student panel of middle school and high school students, a sure sign that students are actors in their own education process, not objects of discussion by adults. And as the saying goes, when it comes to solving tech problems, ask a kid, right? And tech isn't the only arena where children, even young children, demonstrate wisdom beyond their age, as any parent or teacher knows. Additionally, media literacy can be described as production-centered, using digital tools to create a wide variety of media, knowledge, and cultural content. Individual and shared learning are geared toward common goals and problem solving. Today's program features teachers who are employing the media to teach more efficiently and effectively, such as Josh Gold, who teaches middle school math using a flipped classroom. Josh also provides a programming club and a maker space for his students to learn while exploring, playing, and doing. Jeremy Whalen and Al Williams employ Minecraft as a way to teach community building and democracy, among other things. And I'm curious to see what they're doing in this arena. These efforts are closely aligned with the skills that citizens need and that employers cite as desirable for workplace readiness, such as professionalism and work ethic, oral and written communications, teamwork, collaboration, and critical thinking and problem solving. Ellen Fisher is directly connecting her presentation today to workplace skills and teaching public speaking and communications for entrepreneurs, while her student, Elena, is creating a talk show with Thursday Night Live at Big as part of her senior paper. We need media literacy education nationally and internationally. The Aspen Institute recently issued a report called Learner at the Center of a Networked World that described how this new model of teaching and learning calls for media literacy to be at the center of education, along with social and emotional literacies that aid children in processing. Big and community media meet this goal of reaching learners at the center of a networked world. For example, Zach, a Driscoll 8th grader, started an animation and video game production club for students, by students, after school at Big. 2 students in communication for entrepreneurs at Brookline High School are winning grant competitions, and they're working on ideas for drones. Brookline High School alum Mike Bernstein created an innovative running apparel company, and 2 Brookline High School digital video sophomores entered and won the Emergency Preparedness High School Video Contest at the Preparedness and Emergency Learning Center of the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. They also received paid internships with the Harvard T.H. Chan School and the Charleston Kanawha Department of Public Health. So let's celebrate these achievements and give a hand for those outstanding contributors to the Brookline community. You can't ask for better examples of learning that changes lives and communities. Brookline is on the cutting edge with Big. Big is an innovative media center that incubates bright ideas in media, technology, education, and explores in an interactive and engaging and powerful way, explores media creation. In its 2014 annual report, Big noted that it provided $250,000 in media services to community education partners, 3,500 hours of education to Brookline Public Schools, and also worked with after-school programs, summer camps, early release programs, adult workshops, group classes. Big served 550 youth and hundreds of adults through Big's media literacy and educational programs. Big works with after-school programs in Brookline K-8 schools and within Brookline High School, where Big staff shares computer labs with high school teachers. Big also produces the Be Bear Book Club for preschoolers. And Girl Scouts learn to use Big equipment and produce shows on topics such as cyberbullying, environmental protection, animal rights, healthy living, and child abuse. The Documentary Film Club meets monthly, providing screenings of films voted on by members of the group. Media Girls, a nonprofit with services aimed at middle school girls, teams with Big to pilot classes and offer after-school programming. The Grandstanders is an engaging sports show by Boston fans for Boston fans. And Big partnered with the Martin Luther King Day Committee to produce a short documentary called Post-Racial America. So I say Big is big. Let's give a hand for all of these wonderful productions. Thanks, Kathy. But Big isn't complacent. Big has been and will continue to be a steady presence in the Brookline community, a presence that you can count on because Big depends upon the community itself. Pat Norling, an anti-domestic violence advocate, said, "Big has been a godsend to me and the Jennifer A. Lynch Committee Against Domestic Violence. I thank Big for all it has done to help us enlighten the community to the issues of domestic violence. I look forward to continue working with Big in the future." Or hear this from LaRon Moore. "Big helped me figure out who and what I want to be. They provided all the tools to become a professional in the workplace. I don't know where my skills would be today without them." What tools do you need to tell the story of your dream? How can you make your dreams come true for yourself and for your community? How can you help your students make their dreams come true? As we say in media literacy, inquiring minds want to know. And Big is prepared to help. Big offers production grants for up to $5,000 to help fund your production. Also, Brookline educators may apply for awards of up to $1,000 to develop and implement innovative teaching practices through Idea Lab grants provided through the BEF Idea Lab. These resources can make all the difference. Action is possible indeed. Action is not only doable, but it's happening here today. You are here at this conference on a lovely fall Saturday. You are here. You are loving parents and excellent teachers and concerned citizens of this community, your Brookline. I extend to you an important invitation, one that can change your life and that of the people you care most about. Get involved. Use the wonderful resources that Big makes possible for you to explore your big idea. Make new stories and do. This is not a new call to action, but it is no less urgent. The ancient philosopher Plato also extended an invitation that we can act on today. Come then, and let us pass a leisure hour in storytelling, and our story shall be the education of our heroes. Yes, that call is big indeed. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for all of your kudos to Big. I wasn't expecting that, and I really appreciate it. And I want to actually thank our staff, who is not on this side of the camera, but is behind the camera. In particular, Chrissy Frazier. Chrissy, could you come out here for just a second? I want to thank Chrissy. And I actually want to mention, this is kind of an exciting thing for our team today. This is the brand new studio that we just finished building. Ben Brown and our entire team have been working very hard to make sure that it was all up and operational today. So kudos to all of them who are in the control room. We'll get them out later for a big thank you as well. But these are robotic cameras that we now have. And we bought a $36,000 switcher for both the educational studio here and this studio, which enables us to make it a lot easier to facilitate some of these productions and programs that Tessa so kindly mentioned. So thank you. And Tessa, I have all these notes of things that you mentioned that were very interesting, and I want to open it up to questions. So ideas, thoughts, questions that the audience has, and I'll repeat them. I'm imagining that our staff in the control room would like it if I repeat them, just so that we can make sure that they're heard for our television and online audience as well. So questions or thoughts that came up during her keynote for us? Yes?
One of the things that we've struggled with is the media literacy instruction. I don't know what your thoughts about. We've done it in a model where it's been a specific course for kids today, but there's others that feel it's something that should be interwoven throughout the curriculum. I'd like some thoughts.
That's great.
Well, that has been an ongoing debate for years with media literacy education. And a couple of thoughts. One is that if everybody's responsible for it, nobody is. And so that's really, I think, where the rubber meets the road in terms of implementing media literacy programs. Because, first of all, it does take time and definite attention for teachers to really gear up and have the professional skills that they need to teach using a media literacy approach. And so, given that the students also need those same skills, I think it's probably best to really have an emphasis on a media literacy class, at least to begin with, and really get the school immersed in it. As students learn to start applying media literacy to all subjects, then, in a way, their demand for doing that creates pressure then on the teachers, the content teachers, to start integrating media literacy more. But I think it has to come from that strong base of knowledge on the part of the students. And that probably best comes from having, at least initially, a strict focus and, you know, a big focus on the media literacy skills. Yeah.
So I have a follow-up on that.
Sure.
Because we work designing course together. So one of the things I'm wondering is how are you, we're chasing the media now as we move to generation Y. And I talked to my 21-year-old, she said it's such a different landscape even now that she doesn't understand sixth graders and the way they think. I'm wondering how you have handled that as you look at your kid.
Yeah. Well, again, that's another huge issue that we've faced because, you know, all along we faced the problems of the technology evolving. You know, originally the technology was so burdensome and so inefficient. You know, you couldn't bring a big video camera into a classroom easily, and so it was impossible. Now we've got the opposite problem, you know, the mobiles and the smartphones and so on. So I think, first of all, we have to kind of take a step back from the technology and think about, okay, this is really about learning to think critically and understanding how media operate as a system, okay? And the media operate as a system regardless of the technology, although the technology definitely does impact the way people think and how quickly they can get information and so on. So I think that we have to really look at the combination then of the critical thinking skills, but also the facility with media production skills. Now, I would say that a lot of the kids are ahead of us on the media production skills. You know, they know how to use media more effectively than we do in a lot of cases as adults. But by the same token, there are gaps, you know, in their understanding. I think there's particularly a huge gap in their understanding the economic underpinnings of how media work. And they don't understand the consequences of giving away their data or the fact that they are the product. And so there we have an enormous job to do to really teach the economic implications of media and how that works. And that also impacts the way the technology works.
I want to add something to this really quickly, and that is that we see a lot of young people come in not able to tell a story. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we talk about them being digital natives and we talk about them being super tech savvy, but they don't understand what's behind that technology sometimes. They're not actually, if they're not creating technology, if they're not creating media content, they may not understand actually how things are constructed. So I think that whole process of deconstruction is really critical. And then I also think, just to get back to the writing, I love that slide that she put up that said writing equals production. My mom, the English teacher, will love that as well. That it all goes back to good writing. I mean, when you see content online, in Hollywood, on the film screen, the best content is the content that has the best writing. And those are the stories that are compelling to us, that pull us in. You know, we're not necessarily seeing that capability when students come in. And so we have to teach things like empathy. We have to teach compassion. We have to teach storytelling and what is the arc of a story. And so part of deconstructing how other stories are told, they start to get like, oh, right. So, right, they're doing this in this scene, and oh, they're trying to like get me to think this way in this scene. And so I think that deconstruction process is really important as well, because you start to put the pieces together. And if you're just watching things on screens, you may not be an active thinker around how that content is put together. But when you're creating content, you really go through that process. You start to break down. We say that with adults as well. Absolutely. They start realizing, oh, right, I'm setting a scene here. What is the mood that I'm setting? How am I really promoting a particular perspective to the viewer through the use of film, through the use of story? So, you know, one of the things we're doing here is teaching a digital storytelling class starting next Wednesday, and we're really excited about it. It's in the tradition of the Center for Digital Storytelling, because it's very much focused on the personal narrative. And we're going to spend the whole first couple of classes just on writing scripts, which is something that if you're in a media production class, you don't always spend that time getting back to that fundamental of story and what's important in a story and how do you make a story more compelling. And those stories that are the most compelling are the ones that are going to rise to the top in viewership, especially in sort of a crowdsourced, popularized culture where people are sort of determining which content becomes popular.
Absolutely. Yes, and I think that was a big idea behind the Aspen report that I referenced, because the notion was that children really acquire content knowledge through the media, through stories, through information. And so that's where the media literacy skills are so central. But the report also cited social and emotional literacies as also central to the learning process. And so I think we can probably all agree, yes, learning is a social process. And it also depends a lot on the emotional disposition of the children, and their ability to focus, their ability to understand empathy, to understand the implications of story. And so we're really looking at teaching content through a different lens. And so, you know, the content is infinitely available. It's all on the internet. And again, I'm not saying it's not important, but what I'm saying is that it's easily accessed. And yet we are still valuing content as if it were scarce. And so we need to reverse that. We need to value the content as being infinitely available. But what's scarce? The process skills, because we haven't really identified how to best teach them, and they're not being consciously taught in many places. And so as a result, the information process skills and the adult guidance that goes with that is scarce. But we're valuing it as if it were plentiful. It used to be years ago when kids had to go to the library or go to a teacher or go to school to get information. Now nobody's sitting on their shoulder and helping guide them. And so that's why this internalized process for media literacy is so critical, because they have to carry that with them everywhere they go. And that's where it comes down to certainly teaching them that process early on, really focusing on that process so that when they go to other classes, they go to other venues, they are taking that along with them.
Other questions?
Yes, you talked about the 3 to 5-year-olds made me connect to the broader learning community of parents and the relationship between parents and educators. Can you speak a little bit more on that learning community and how we as educators can help parents? I mean, maybe it's a parent storytelling day, or maybe it's because I do think parents need some structure and some availability of how to go about doing this and helping to define this.
Absolutely. We've done some work with preschools and with preschool education. And again, a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, we did work with the parents and the teachers primarily because they have to have the skills themselves before they can teach, and work with the parents as well as the children. So we really emphasized teacher training. We also had parent workshops, and actually the workshops that we found were most successful were storytelling workshops. We focused on parents telling their stories, and in some cases they did real low-tech things like scrapbooking. In other cases, they were able to use some technology tools that the school was able to provide. So there are a lot of ways to go about it, but it was very interesting because first of all, we found that a lot of parents had never told their stories to their children. And it was amazing that they hadn't. And so this was a fantastic opportunity to not only help build family cohesion and, really help the families in telling their stories, but it helped in some cases with technology. We also taught some of the media literacy skills to go along with it. So I think that parent education is really, really important. Also the skill that I mentioned earlier, mediating. Any way that we can teach mediation is really key. And so that's where, again, teaching a process of inquiry, teaching to ask questions and to challenge what's being seen, not treating, for example, watching a television or a video as being sacred. You don't have to sit there and watch the whole thing all at once. You can interrupt it anytime you want and ask a question or, we've had plenty of kids who have said, oh, you've run television for me for life. Because we're critically analyzing. We're not just sitting there taking it all in, But nevertheless, I think, we have to remember that we're in charge of the clicker. So that's an important thing for parents to know.
Well, we have time for one last question. Anybody have a question burning on their minds? Yeah, Elon.
I think it's more of an observation than a question, but I love the insight. One of the reasons I'm here today is because I want to think about the two things in the corner of the screen, Brooklyn Public Schools and Big. I think Big's done an amazing job of offering things, but let's keep in mind, most of them are after school. Chrissy's offering great courses, but let's remember, there are few courses. So I'm a high school teacher. The kids who come through my class, most of them have very little knowledge about media literacy, about production techniques, about how to use the phones that they have in their pockets.
Yep.
And so the challenge has been, I think, if the agenda of BIG is to push us towards greater media literacy and production skills, how do we bring that into the schools? And I feel like we think we've done it a little bit, but there's so many other things that have taken up our attention.
Absolutely. You are putting your finger right on the biggest issue for high school is time and making sure that students have what they need by the time they leave high school. I think in a formal education setting, a big part of the key is professional development. The teachers have to know how to do this inside and out. They really have to have experience with it themselves. And I think that once that's done, once a good job of professional development is done, that the teachers can easily make the connections with what they're already doing. You know, we were able, with a group of teachers, we worked with them for about a year, and we connected the standards, the Common Core standards, to the content that they were teaching, and it was all different kinds of disciplines, to media literacy, to the basic framework for media literacy with the process that I had mentioned earlier. By the end of that year, some teachers got it immediately, were easily able to make the connections. Other teachers took a little longer, but by the end of the year, there wasn't a teacher that we were working with who wasn't able to do a lesson plan in easily 20 minutes to be able to make all of those connections. And I think that's pretty powerful in terms of what good teachers can do and how they can easily make these connections. Now, production, certainly there are a lot of assignments given in high school, just as there are in any other grade level. So it is certainly possible to integrate production. But if nothing else, it's really important to teach the deconstruction skills, because then that will come out in the production. And so, you know, it's definitely possible to address both sides, but I hear you. And high school, we found, is the most difficult level to work with because teachers are under so much pressure.
I wonder if it's also an issue of priority.
Yes.
It's really easy for teachers to people to say, we need to integrate everything and make it work. That's the model I've seen, and I'm skeptical of that.
I hear you. And that's why I think that it comes down to making it a priority for professional development. Because if it's not a priority, it'll never happen. You know, and teachers always will say, well, you know, I want to go to a history conference. I want to go to, you know, the English conference, or, you know, their particular discipline. Whereas media literacy is really foundational. And so that's where we get into the arguments about, okay, should it be a class or should it be integrated? And so, unfortunately, because most districts have not laid the foundation for media literacy early, by the time the kids get to high school, they're still getting there without the skills. And so you've got a catch-up job to do. And that's why I'm saying that especially when you're first starting, it's really important to start media literacy as a class unto itself at all levels until that foundation is really laid. And it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight.
I'll just add one thing, and I really appreciate you bringing up that question and that need. I think for us, that's what we're trying to figure out as well. How can we use our resources to support teachers? And you that are in the room are the ones that are really going to lead that, I think, at the district level, and be able to come up with some ideas about how we can build collaborations, how there's things that we can provide, there's things that the district can provide that we can do as perhaps maybe cohort groups will form out of this. We don't know. We just wanted to create a platform for having these conversations today. So, you know, Tessa, thank you so much for really kicking us off to think about some of these things. It's clear that you sort of sparked some thoughts for folks in the room, and all of your questions were really great as well. Thank you so much for adding those insights. We are going to have a design thinking training this afternoon right after lunch that is really focused on what are the problems that we're trying to solve and what are some of the possible solutions. So we're actually hoping that you'll come up with some of those ideas for what can we do together? What would be, you know, how might we, is the question in design thinking that we're sort of taught to ask, how might we bring media literacy into the district? How might we make it easier for some of our colleagues who put obstacles in the way of being able to adopt media literacy? How might we get folks to think about media production as part of their curriculum, as part of Common Core and the things that you're trying to achieve in the classroom already? How might we do these things? And you really are the best folks to ask that question, because you have that practical experience every day of trying to bring some of these things into your classroom. And the reason you're here is because you're pioneers and leaders and are interested in doing that. So we're hoping to tap into your expertise later today, and I'm very excited about that process and what might come out of that. I'm going to just thank Tessa again, if you could join me in thanking her so much for coming.
Thanks.
And I will also mention that one of the things that BIG has done is we asked Tessa to stay a couple extra days, and on Monday, Tuesday, and a little bit of Wednesday, we're going to be working with her. Chrissy and I will be working with her to talk about some of the things that came out of this summit, as well as come up with some curriculum ideas that we may be able to implement at our media center. And so I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation following up as well. What can we do as a media center to support that? And how do we support other media centers across the state and across the country in being able to add more media literacy into their curriculums after school and on the weekends and the evenings and maybe even during school time as well? National Media Literacy Week is coming up.
Yes, it's November 2nd to 6th. And it's nationwide also in Canada. Canada actually started Media Literacy Week and been doing it for about 10 years. So if you have some things that you'd like to do and everybody's organizing separately, there's a national website on Media Literacy Week that you can list out whatever activities you're planning to do.
And we're going to be doing some activities here, so we'll touch base about that later in the day. So Chrissy, should I say what our next session is?
We're just going to take a moment to mic up people for our next
Great.
session, and then we're going to go right into it and have a break afterwards. If you want.
Great. So thank you.